Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. You've joined me, Ian, on Fliplet Summit. The first session of today is called Will AI Replace Apps and No-Code App Builders? And this is the keynote presentation. So I am your host, Ian Broom, and in case you're wondering, this is how AI sees me. This is what I got when I typed in Ian Broom Pixar style. So I'm not sure if I'm happy or sad over the fact that it literally portrayed me with a physical broom, but I think otherwise it's actually not too bad a likeness considering it didn't have a lot to go on. And all the images you'll see in today's keynote presentation have been generated by AI, in case you're wondering where I got the eclectic mix from. So what is Fliplet Summit? So Fliplet Summit is our biannual event. So every 6 months, we run an event where we go through, we have some thought leadership content, such as the keynote I'm doing now. We give an update on our roadmap. We give some demos. We talk about information security and compliance. But we also invite a customer along to join us. And today I'll be joined by Mayor Brown. Adam from Mayor Brown will be joining me in about half an hour to tell us a little bit about how they use Fliplet. And this is a more detailed agenda. But I believe most of you probably picked the sessions as part of your registration that you wanted to attend. So hopefully you've already got your agenda organized for today's summit. If you have any questions at any point, or you've got any suggestions for topics that we should cover more, or complementary topics you'd like to see us talking about, please just click the QA button and type in your message. It's private. It only goes to Fliplet staff, so you're not going to be exposing your question to any other attendees. And if we don't have time during today's summit to answer your questions, we'll follow up with you. If for some reason we're not sure who you are, you might get a message back from one of my colleagues just asking to clarify who you are, so we know how to follow up with you afterwards. Please submit any questions or suggestions at any point. So, my head is spinning, as I'm sure your head is probably spinning as well, because AI is changing so fast. There are so many new products and technologies and acronyms coming onto the market. It's almost too exciting. So let's kind of dive in and actually look at what is AI great at and why. And then this is all leading up to kind of, will AI replace app builders? Will AI replace the need for apps? And will AI replace the need for you to maintain and update your own apps, which I'll be answering later on in the keynote. But let's just pay attention to what AI is great at and why. So AI is trained on billions of words in different languages. And mainly what it's doing is it's pattern matching the order of those words. I was actually at a presentation last night by somebody who has a PhD in AI, worked at Google, worked at some other AI companies, is now running his own business. And even he's blown away at how much AI has improved over the last few years. But he pointed out that it's still just a model based on figuring out what's the most likely next word and kind of putting it in a sentence. The only difference is that the recent models that we've all been using have been trained with an enormous amount of data and at enormous kind of server costs, whereas previously nobody had ever envisaged AI as much data as AI models are being given today, that they would be able to do what we're currently benefiting from today. So because they understand languages really well, and because they are perceived to be really good at pattern matching the next words that make sense to humans, it's resulted in them being able to be perceived as intelligent and understand and look like a human, even though they're not. And what a lot of the AI models or a lot of the AI technology companies are doing at the moment, and Microsoft did a huge developer event yesterday, and surprise, surprise, they spoke a lot about AI. What a lot of AI models are now doing is they're taking this base kind of technical capability and then they're training it on other data sets, such as code, such as images, and now they're giving it new special capabilities, like the ability when it thinks it needs to go off and ask search engines or third-party websites what to do. So AI is very rapidly becoming great at lots and lots of different things. And it all stems from this base capability that it's able to understand what it is we're asking through this immense amount of data and pattern matching. So exactly what is AI good at? Well, I think most of us know it's really good at text generation. You may have played around with code generation. It's very good at that. And apparently it's because you can teach it code like you can teach it a language. So it's a very similar system. And the talk I was at yesterday briefly explained that apparently the reason why it's pretty good at generating images, obviously that's kind of up to you whether you like the images or not that AI is generated for this presentation. But the reason why it's even capable of generating images is apparently they've taken images and they've chunked them up and kind of explained to AI, like this, in this image is this, in this image is this, in this image is this, and then given it huge amounts of data so that it's then able to pattern match. Okay, so this and this and this put together makes a coherent image. And that's where images have come off, image generation in AI has come from. But it's also getting really good at other specific tasks that don't come from learning languages. And that's because it's being attached to other pieces of software, such as maths. If you've seen the TED Talk by the OpenAI founder, he acknowledges that it was getting maths problems wrong because it was trained on English or trained on languages. Now they're kind of augmenting its capabilities where it detects maths. It actually just uses normal programming, which is very good at maths, to figure out the answer. It's also, AI is very rapidly getting good at figuring out what types of information you're giving it. And you're seeing more of this in recent demos where images are being fed to AI, and then it's being asked to like respond in text, or it's being given big data sets of like CSV exports, and then questions are being posed to it. And it's able to kind of determine like, this is data in a tabular format, and this is a question in language. Don't mix those up, treat them differently. So it's getting very, very good at lots of different things. I'm going to mention risks just briefly. Lots have been said about the risks. I'm hoping that most of the attendees today, their organizations have explained kind of the risks of AI and set policies or guidelines in place. But a couple of updated things that I would just like to add to the list. Firstly, and if you were on the last AI webinar that I did, I read the terms of use of the AI capabilities from Google, from Bing, and from OpenAI, and I found some really interesting things in there. So I would encourage you, if you haven't, like read the terms. Products are coming to the market all the time. As I said, Microsoft had a big event yesterday where they announced a stack of new changes to Bing Chat, their AI features. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they've updated the terms again to accommodate those new capabilities. I think you should just, as a general rule, avoid giving any third-party software your data. That includes personal information, corporate information, etc. And of course, be very mindful of privacy laws, particularly sub-processing of data. You're not allowed under GDPR to take data that somebody's given to you for a purpose and go and do something else with it without going back and getting their approval. So just be mindful. And by the way, in case you're wondering, Fliplet, in all of the experimentation we're doing and all of the internal and product use cases where we're using AI, we are complying to everything that I just said. We're checking the terms. We're not giving it any sensitive data. We're definitely not giving it any client data or any user data. We're ensuring that we're using it as responsibly as possible. Okay, so before I dive into the next few slides, I just wanted to tell people how I've kind of analyzed the questions that I'm going to pose to myself in my keynote. That sounds very egocentric, doesn't it? So I'm initially going to answer in the positive, and then I'll kind of adjust and answer in the negative, or like the pros and cons. Just in case you're wondering, wow, Ian's really pro this topic, listen for a little bit longer and you'll hear me now kind of argue against myself. Okay, so will AI replace apps? Now, at this point, I'm just going to remind everybody, if you do have any questions or suggestions that you'd like to make, please just pop them into the chat. We're about to get into the weeds of kind of how I see AI disrupting apps. So on the one hand, will AI replace apps? And I think we've already started to see the answer is yes in some scenarios. So I think one of the great things that we've all experienced is now that we're able to chat 24/7 with a tool that's very intelligent and very good at synthesizing huge amounts of data that might take us an hour on Google to find. We're now able to get a result from, say, ChatGPT, Bing, or Bard. We're getting results in 30 seconds, 1 minute, that mean that we don't have to spend the hour searching and kind of cross-referencing multiple search results. So in that case, I think, yeah, you're going to see a lot of apps, particularly apps where they would benefit from a chat interface being replaced by AI. And I think this includes other interfaces as well, such as dashboards, I think will be potentially replaced by AI, because some scenarios, people just want to glance at the information on a dashboard and then take action. But other times, dashboards are overwhelming and complicated. And what I don't want to be doing is I don't want to have to study a dashboard and then potentially have to take the data out and put it into Excel or Google Sheets and analyze it myself. So I think what you'll start to see is kind of chat starting to move more and more into some of these existing interfaces that we're used to kind of complement how they work. So chat where you can ask a dashboard for information, or chat where you can ask a really long document, like, hey, what are the key points that I should be paying attention to? Here's what I do, or here's my perspective on the topic. And there's also been some really interesting demos from AI companies whereby they've asked it to, say, visualize information that it's found. So instead of what's the NASDAQ performance over the last 5 years, although different AI solutions will give you the answer, they'll just print the answer out as text. But actually, what we're starting to see is if you ask it for data and it detects that it's data that it's getting back, it'll automatically produce a data visualization, such as a chart. So I think you're going to start to see, particularly in relation to integrations or specific capabilities being added. Like I mentioned earlier, maths was added, data analysis and charting is going to be added very soon. So I think you're going to start to see AI being able to do more and more. And of course, that means that it will replace existing use cases and may replace apps. Now I'll talk about why I think it won't replace apps. So I was having, in my preparation for this talk, I was talking to one of my advisors. And when I said, do you think AI is going to replace the need for apps? He just dismissed it immediately. He said, Ian, books have been around for thousands of years. We've had lots of great technology come out. Nothing's kind of replaced books. We still want to see text on a screen if that's what we want to see. And if that's the most efficient way for humans to consume the information, we're still going to put large blocks of text on the screen. So he's like, it doesn't make sense that everything's going to become about AI being the interface to your kind of materials or your preferred way of viewing or receiving information back. The other aspect is humans' eyes are really good at processing large amounts of data very quickly when it's visualized in an appropriate way. And so therefore, one of the things that I don't think is going to go away is kind of our preference for how information is presented back to us. And that may always not be the most efficient thing to be asking AI to do. So for example, I don't want to have to ask AI every Monday morning to kind of prepare kind of a dashboard for me. What I want is an existing piece of software, probably a tool that I already have, to kind of just have the dashboard configured. I load it, the data's there, it's quick and easy, I can scan it, and I get what I want out of it. Now, of course, it might be augmented with AI, but I'd be surprised if it would be replaced by AI. I think one of the other aspects is humans have invested a huge amount of time in perfecting computer interfaces. They've come a long way over the last 30 or 40 years. And we all have preferences. I mean, lots of people like certain aspects about what Windows does. Lots of people like certain aspects about Windows operating systems. Certain people like certain websites. Certain people like apps on their devices to work a certain way. I don't think kind of AI is necessarily going to come along and just replace those interfaces. A simple example, and something we've been experimenting with recently, is it's a lot easier to use some new AI-powered features if actually it has a relatively standard interface on the front. So for example, last week we demoed our an AI app promotional tool where you can tell it about your app and it'll help you produce different types of promotional material. Now, I can tell you internally, when we were trying to figure out how to communicate with AI to get good promotional content back related to apps, we realized very quickly that you have to provide it with certain structured information for it to do a good job. and asking in chat from a user, hey, answer this question, now answer this question, now answer this question, now answer this question. Now you get the idea, right? It becomes pretty tedious pretty quickly. So one of the things that we've decided to do is actually build structured forms that use drop-down lists or checkboxes, things that really speed up the ability for humans to input their data into a tool. And then what we do is we take it, we restructure it, we process it, and then we send it to AI if that's what we're going to be doing with it. And what we've found is that humans can skim this form and they can be using it within a couple of seconds. Like the training requirement is very, very low. Therefore, the output or the perceived speed at which a human can use the tool is very, very fast. And of course, it's nowhere near as flexible as being able to chat to AI, but to train somebody on how to chat with AI to get really high quality promotional materials about your app, I'm not sure how many people would be kind of that interested to spend the time to learn how to do that. So yeah, so I think that ultimately apps, because they give us custom interfaces that are highly optimized, will continue to exist. But I think that we'll see more and more augmentation from AI behind the scenes. Okay, so will AI replace app builders? Is Fliplet dead? Well, I hope not, because you're all spending time learning about what we're building. So hopefully I have a positive answer. But let's start with saying that, yes, like let's play devil's advocate. AI could replace app builders. So AI is very good at suggesting great app features. If you ask it like, hey, I want to build app idea X, what should I include in the app? It's really good at synthesizing from its large database what features would be useful in that app. There are lots of really cool features now where you can ask different AI tools to help you kind of come up with design or user interface ideas, and it will generate user interface designs for you, or it'll generate great looking app designs. Code generation, as I mentioned earlier, is really good and it's getting a lot better. And I know GitHub is investing enormous amounts of resources in building really intelligent tools that are going to help developers deliver code a lot faster, or really shift their role to not writing as much code anymore, really just telling the AI what they want the code to do, and AI goes and makes it happen. And I guess one of the key things that's going on behind the scenes is that AI is getting trained on how to build user interfaces, how code works, and then how should code work in relation to developers, so developers can use coding AI tools efficiently. The only downside I would see to all of this AI replacing app builders is just how much training is required and how long it will take. I already kind of mentioned that LLMs have huge amounts of data in them, and the sheer cost and the amount of time it takes to train these models. So I think one of the things that we just need to be mindful of when we're considering will AI replace app builders is just how many features app builders currently have and how long it's going to take to train an AI on how to do that. Mind you, Fliplets kind of already started experimenting in this space. And again, last week in our second AI webinar, we demoed not only a data generation, but also a screen generation feature based on the data that you fed the kind of AI and that you put into Fliplet. The result was that AI is now being able to start to generate some specific features inside Fliplet. But it's not necessarily replacing the entire app build process. It still needs to be guided by a human. It still needs humans to tell it, well, what data should I put in here? What makes logical sense around this feature and that feature? What are my stakeholders looking for? What's our brand guidelines? Things like this. So although I think that parts of AI will replace app builders, I'm not sure it's going to be a complete solution anytime soon. And I'll kind of go into why some of the challenges we have to overcome. So firstly, code generation that AI generates still needs humans to get involved in. It still has bugs. This means that although anyone can now generate code, you still need to be kind of a trained developer in order to do something with the code and actually figure out how to make it work and make it work reliably and upload it to servers and make sure that it's been done in a responsible way and complies with all legislation, etc. There's a lot of moving parts to code generation. UI and design capabilities are still really in their infancy. If you go and see some of the really cool AI demos, you realize that it's not really that creative yet. It's still really just following its kind of limited training. I think ultimately what's much more likely here is, again, augmentation. I think we're going to see AI coming along and taking a lot of maybe not that great aspects of building apps off the table, and hopefully converting humans into what they're much better at, which is almost like editors and curators, as opposed to humans having to just build yet another screen with another form on it. It would be a lot more interesting to just be, hey, AI, I need a form and needs to have this on it. And, you wait a few seconds and it's like, here it is. And you kind of go, yeah, it looks good. I made a couple of tweaks, but now that job's done. And instead of it taking 10 minutes, it took me 3 minutes. So I think that that's what's much more likely around AI's impact on app builders. And then the kind of final self-reflection question is, will AI replace app management and maintenance? So once again, I'll start with the positive. Yes, I think AI is going to be able to do some amazing stuff. Like imagine an app, AI being able to analyze your app performance and give personalized recommendations on how it thinks you could improve your app to increase engagement levels. That's a really hard thing for humans to do well, partly because it requires a lot of knowledge. You need to be able to synthesize all these different pieces of data and actually understand what they all mean. Plus, you've got to then make a decision. You might come up with 50 different ideas, but how do you know which one's going to make the biggest impact? AI is really good at crunching lots of pieces of information and summarizing them for you. AI might be able to even kind of provide suggestions around tweaks and using some of the methods I previously described where AI is starting to be able to configure parts of Fliplet. You might be able to get AI to actually apply those tweaks directly to your app. I imagine that these tweaks would have to be fairly simple tweaks initially, more out of just controlling the risk. Do you really want your AI just going crazy and redesigning half of your app and then realizing, actually, I don't like it? And now how do I undo this? No, I don't think anybody wants to create more problems for themselves. But I think AI can potentially start to win our trust through being able to hey, we noticed this screen has a form and maybe the form's not getting as much usage as possible. So actually we analyze that screen and we recommend maybe adjusting some of the titles and shifting the order around. Would you like us to do that for you? Now, obviously that's a much lower risk, right? If you didn't like it, you can always roll that screen back and the extent of the change is just one screen. So I think most of us would be quite happy to see what AI is suggesting in that context. But I don't necessarily know if we'd want to give AI full reign, just automatically optimize any part of my app, just because the risk of something happening that you're not happy with is obviously very likely. I also think AI will be very good at actually monitoring the data for each of your individual users and then intelligently making suggestions to each of those users. So for example, let's say your app has, 5 features, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I use feature 1 a lot. And therefore, when you send me a push notification promoting feature 2, I don't respond. Whereas the data quite clearly shows I've never used feature 2, but I really like feature 1. And then maybe AI could have a go at sending me a notification, kind of reminding me about feature 1 and seeing if I engage. And if it finds, oh, Ian engaged after I reminded him about feature 1, maybe if I do it again, he'll engage again. Oh, yes, he did. So hang on, I've got a user here called Ian that really likes feature 1, but when I told him about feature 2, he didn't seem to do anything. Okay, so, and then what it might do is start potentially trying different techniques on different users and then kind of slowly refine. But the great thing is AI can do this on an individual user by user basis. If your app has 1,000 users, I can't see many humans kind of happily optimizing exactly what say notifications or kind of email content is sent to people based on every single user's individual profile. So that's a really exciting opportunity, and obviously a huge boom to potentially increasing the level of engagement around your app, which is a key element of management. But I also think there's some reasons why AI may not be that useful. So firstly, as I've already alluded to, I don't think you want to just blindly trust AI to go off and do things. That would be scary. I also think that AI really needs to understand your app before it can do some of these maintenance tasks or some data analysis tasks. And so one of the things that I previously mentioned is that really AI is going to have to learn about the app builder in order to make effective suggestions. I could go and ask AI right now. I could describe any app that I built on Fliplet, and I could ask it for suggestions, but the suggestions are not grounded necessarily in things that I can actually do in Fliplet. And plus, it might give me some really good ideas, but then not be able to help me actually execute them in Fliplet. So I think that what's much more likely is that we're going to need to train AI on kind of the context in which it's meant to give support. And then it will hopefully become a lot better. But again, it will still have to earn our trust. And the other critical element is AI in its current form has limits. Although those limits are very rapidly being lifted, at the moment, those limits are still relatively small. So for example, you can only give AI so much information before it basically just says, well, I can't deal with any more information. You've hit a limit. That's the end. And then you kind of have to start the process again. We need those limits to go away on the technology side so that we can give it, for example, enough of the usage data and enough of potentially the anonymized user data for it to then be able to crunch all of that data together to start to give suggestions about, well, what could you contact Ian with that's likely to get him to re-engage with your app? So I think that there's quite a lot of like internal kind of app building aspects that need to be worked on. I think there's some AI improvements that need to kind of come along before a lot of these cool ideas that I'm mentioning are really feasible. I think that the features that are actually offered by the AI tools themselves will continue to refine, hopefully at the current pace. Therefore, we'll all benefit from them. But right now, quite a few of the flaws in AI would inhibit some of the ideas that I've suggested. So I definitely think this is going to be a hot space. And I guess ultimately, one of the reasons why I wanted to cover this topic in a keynote is I really wanted to kind of make it clear to our customers and people who are interested in Fliplet, like we are considering this and we are very happy to disrupt ourselves if this results in a better experience for our customers. But at the same time, we also don't want to get your hopes up and say, yeah, don't worry, like AI is going to basically mean you don't need to use tools like Fliplet anymore, when in reality, I think that it's probably going to be a while. And I guess the aspect that I haven't considered, which is very much a future-gazing thought, I'm surprised nobody's popped this in the QA yet, is, but like if AI can do all of this, then what? And I think based off human ingenuity and kind of human innovation, we always want more. So as soon as AI starts to kind of catch up with a lot of the things, I think that our expectations will just lift. So now, all apps will start kind of incorporating some of the cool stuff that I spoke about here. And therefore, apps will just, will have a higher level of expectation around what they do, which will then necessitate a next set of features. So, okay. So I've spoken about the future. That's all very good, but let me talk about the now. So here are my top tips about how you can use AI to complement your app creation process today. So you've got ideation. So you can definitely use AI to kind of test some app ideas. It can do market research. It can come up with name ideas for you, which is fun. When you're in the build phase, it can generate content, it can generate data, it can generate icons, and it can generate images, of which you've seen some examples today in the slides. It can help you with the testing phase. It can generate test plan, test cases, test data, and it can even teach you how to do testing and testing best practices. When you get to the pilot phase, it can generate instructions for test users. It can generate survey questions. It can help you to analyze the survey responses anonymously, of course, and it can help to suggest improvements based off the data that you feed it. At launch, it can generate promotional content, a marketing plan. It can teach you how to market apps if this is the first time you've done it. And then post-launch, it can help you to analyze the usage data, provide app improvement ideas, and generate content. Now, a lot of these things at the moment, you need to be kind of using one of the chatbots, Bard, Bing, ChatGPT, and kind of giving it the information that you want to then ask it about. But as Fliplet evolves and as we work with our customers and what they want to use, what they want to be using AI for, we're going to factor more and more of these capabilities directly into our product.